Hey everyone, my name's Dusty, and we're here at the restoration shop for the National Museum of Military Vehicles. And the vehicle that we're going to be talking about today is the M274 A4 Mechanical Mule that was developed in 1956. This particular model was produced in 1964, and it's a fairly rare model just due to the fact that it has a tow missile system mounted on it. So the Mule was not necessarily designed to replace the Jeep, but it was built to supplement the Jeep because they could get this into more remote locations via helicopter. They could sling it under a helicopter. They could also carry it in the troop compartment of the helicopter or airdrop it in by parachute. Another reason that this was developed is that for its off-road capability. As you can see, it's got much higher ground clearance than the Jeep had. It has a steeper approach angle at the front and the rear. It also has four-wheel steer on some of the later models, and then it's also four-wheel drive. And it's also capable of carrying a half-ton load, which for its size is pretty phenomenal. So another interesting fact about this Mule platform was that in 1966, NASA actually did a study titled a Vehicle Lunarization Study to see if they could use this platform as the lunar rover for the moon landing. So one of the things that NASA really liked about this Mule was the size of the vehicle itself, because it needed to fit inside the lunar lander module. The deck itself is the same size as a sheet of plywood, 4 by 8 feet. Now the overall width is just under 5 feet if you include the fenders and the outside of the tires, and if you include the foot basket, the overall length is just under 10 feet. While we were doing some research on the lunarization project that NASA published, we came across some photos of some of their prototypes. And in one of those prototypes, it's very clear that they may have even duplicated the deck and possibly even the wheels and tires as part of their design. So we'd like to think that some of the aspects of the Mule's design were influential in the lunar rover's final iteration. Let me show you guys how this thing operates. On the foot basket, you can see there's a series of foot pedals here, just like it is in an automobile with a standard transmission. So you have a gas pedal, a brake pedal, and a clutch. Now this knob right here is so you can work the throttle by hand. And you might be asking, well, why would you want to do that? Well, the steering column has the capability of tipping down so that the operator can drive this thing around in a position of cover. So they can basically crouch right down and be driving this thing. This also has 3 forward gears and 1 reverse. It has a high and low transfer case. Right here we have your hand parking brake. And right below this, right here is a attachment for a tow bar, so they could tow these just like a trailer if they needed to. Now this one's been upgraded with an electric start. This right here is where the pull start would have been on the earlier models. There would be a T-handle there, just like on a lawnmower, and you could pull start it from there, and then you have your choke lever right here. All right, so guys, we're gonna go over this tow system itself and kind of give you a rundown of what all the features are of the weapon system, and then we'll also go and kind of describe what it's like to fire one of these things. So we'll start here at the back of the Mule. So the missile itself is encased in this tube, and it stays in there when you load this tube into the launcher. You don't have to take the missile out. It all stays encased in here. Now this particular tube is for an earlier tow model, which is the, if I read this correctly, the BGM-71 A1 model. Now the model that I'm more familiar with is the TOW 2 weapon system, but the parts and pieces are nearly identical. So moving forward from the missile tubes, we have a ground mount tripod, so you have the option of mounting this on the ground and then obviously keeping it mounted to the vehicle, whichever vehicle that may be. Now there's a spot that's void right here, and what would go here is the missile guidance system. And there's also a battery that would go with that. Now, starting from the top here, on the launcher itself, this is what they call your night sight tracker. It's basically a thermal imaging system. When you look through the eyepiece here, there's a reticle, just like on a hunting rifle. So the reason that there's a night sight tracker on the system is not only just to shoot this thing at night, but if the battlefield is clouded with smoke or you're in some dense fog, you can still track your target using the thermal imager. Mounted right below it is your day sight tracker, and it also has just a simple crosshair, just like a rifle scope. On the early tow models, like this one here, in order to calibrate the night sight to the day sight, they had to do that manually. On the later model, on the TOW2 weapon system, that was all done inside the guidance computer, and so it was all done electronically. So let's kind of go over how you actually fire this missile system. So first thing you got to do is you would remove one of these tubes from the stowed position and load it into the cradle on the launcher. So we're going to do that right now. So right now what we have is a practice tube, and it just loads right like this, sits inside the cradle, and then this is your locking lever. You lock that down, and now the missile is in the cradle. It's locked in place. So the next thing as the gunner is to locate a target. So we'll move around to this side, and it's got a locking lever back here so that this thing doesn't move around while it's in transit. So we got to unlock that so that you have your traverse, and then you also unlock for your elevation control. Now the way you aim this is if you're looking through the day sight tracker, and as you can see, you use your body is what is used to traverse, and you use your hands for your elevation. Now that may seem kind of primitive, and it is, but it keeps it simple. And the other issue that you have with this is it's very sensitive to movement. So just like firing a rifle at the rifle range or while you're out hunting, even your breathing can affect how this, the moving the crosshairs on this. So you generally try and wedge your body into a position to where be as steady as you possibly can. So let me show you guys how to actually fire this thing. So we'll spin this around so you can get a better view of this over the side of the system. So right up here on the locking lever, you see this little lever right here. This is your arming lever. So you can think of that as just like a safety on a firearm, on a rifle. So once this is flipped up, this system is ready to fire. And so the next step, you can see here, you fire this with your thumb. There's a trigger right here, and it's got a safety cover on it, so you flip that up, and you're going to depress this with your thumb, obviously while you're looking through the sight. As soon as you depress the trigger, what will happen is you'll be able to hear, and you can even hear it with your earplugs in, you'll hear the gyro spin up inside the missile itself. And there's a 1.5 seconds delay before the launch motor ignites. Now the launch motor is what propels the missile out of the tube. I mean, it's a loud boom, and it's such a loud boom that on my first shot, it caused me to flinch a little bit because even though I knew it was going to happen, it still caused me to flinch. Well, remember I told you earlier that any slight bit of movement on the system itself, your crosshair is going to come off your target. And generally what happens is when you do that flinch, the tendency is to elevate. And I'm over-exaggerating right now, but that's the natural tendency is to elevate. So as you're looking through here, you suddenly realize that, man, I'm no longer on the target. So as the missile leaves the tube, there's a big ball of flame that comes out the back of this. You have to be cognizant of what's behind you. The missile will travel for a short distance, and then there is a flight motor that ignites. It's actually a rocket motor that will ignite. So when that rocket motor ignites, because of that blast, you will actually lose sight of your target again. So there's possibility that you could lose sight of your target twice, once from flinching and the second time from when that rocket motor ignites. And that is actually what brings the missile up to speed and what is propelling it downrange. Now you might be asking yourself, well, how come that rocket motor doesn't stay ignited for the entire flight of the missile? Well, the reason for that is there's 2 wires trailing out of the back of the missile as it's going downrange. So number 1, it would probably burn those wires. And then number 2, there's a tracking flare on the back of the missile. Your thermal imager and your day sight tracker, that's what they're tracking on the missile, is that little flare. As the gunner, your job is to keep that crosshair on the target, whether it's a moving target or a stationary target. As you provide input By doing this, and I'm over-exaggerating and doing this, you're basically providing the missile with a destination to go to. The wire on the back of the missile on these earlier missiles was only would give you a range of about 3,000 meters, and that's what determines the effective range of the missile is the length of the wires. Now the TOW-2 variant, they made some improvements in its range, and the wire now is at 3,750 meters. They also improved the warhead so that it could penetrate 32 inches of armor plate. Now there's also more advanced models from the TOW-2 where the missile would actually fly over the top of the target and fire its projectile straight down. Well, now TOW is an acronym, TOW, and that stands for Tube-Launched, Optically-Tracked, and Wire-Guided Missile. So after the missiles impacted the target, there's still one more step, and it's a very important step that you cannot forget. And we'll spin this back around so we can show you. Now remember, you've got wires trailing out the back of the missile. So it's very important to cut that. And reason being is if you think of those wires as like a piano wire that's stretched tight, it could actually decapitate somebody. So it's the gunner's responsibility to immediately cut. And that's how that gets cut, is you flip that lever back up. So you've severed the wire and it's now safe for, especially if you're on a mobile mount, to get out of your firing position. I'm going to tell you guys a kind of a funny story. So back in the late 90s, the Army came out with a regulation stating that you could not fire a TOW missile unless it was mounted on an armored vehicle. Now, those of us that in the Marine Corps that were firing these from an unarmored Humvee, we were now no longer allowed to shoot a missile on an Army range. So the solution was that we could wrap from here to here, we could wrap the missile tube with a Kevlar blanket, and now we were Army approved. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed our introduction to the Mule, how it functions, how it drives, and how this missile system operates. And the real reason that we really brought this out today was not just to give you guys a demonstration, but we need to get this thing ready for the upcoming 4th of July parade. In order to do so, I'm going to get the help of one of our co-workers, and we're going to do a deep dive on this thing and see if we can't get her up and running.
Cover's off. You check the oil out the rear. And it is full. That looks brand new. So we need to check all the differential fluids and the tranny. And it's just like a car, there's fill ports and drain ports.
So you have your the straight part of the axle here, and then it goes down into a gear reduction. So that's why we have 3 different chambers for oil. I'm going to pull the drain here. Ooh, there's oil in there. It looks brand new. It's pretty clean. So it's just not full because I can't feel any in there with my finger. But that looks pretty brand new. So we'll tighten that back up. And then we'll pull the drain on this other gear reduction. So it's just a little dirty, a little bit of sludge in there, but nothing, no chunks, nothing to be super concerned about. Oh, well, that didn't take much, so I guess it is full. Okay, go ahead.
Did you call me a goat head?
Yeah, I did. And I can see the gear in there and it looks pretty clean. I'm gonna have a problem with this plug. It's all rounded out.
Roy.
Yeah, so as you can see right here is where your ratchet fits into the plug. On the drain, it's all rounded out, and you can kind of see teeth marks on there where somebody's probably put a vice grip on it. We'll probably try the same thing to get it out of there, and then we'll replace it with a new plug. Nope, shoot.
I think we got those big easy outs.
Oh yeah, that might work.
Nate, Action.
We got a mule on fire. Stop. Hammer time.
Hammer time.
Do, 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 do.
And the easy out spinning.
Ah, man. Go up high.
Come more my way.
Okay. Booyah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it worked.
Still hot as hell. Looks like almost water in it at first.
Good news is it doesn't feel gritty.
Just to recap what we've done, we checked all the fluids in the axles, both front and rear, engine oil, transmission. We filled all of those. So right now we're gonna try and see if this thing will start.
We might have some transmission problems.
Yeah.
We're going to switch this into four-wheel steering instead of just two. You just take this shaft, it's right above me up here, and link it into the front steering. I might need a punch. Now that we got it partway in there, let's turn the wheels to the left.
To the left.
To the left.
Okay.
That's perfect right there.
Right there.
That'll work.
Dude, that thing is squirrely. That's not even fun.
It's a little spooky.
Can you imagine trying to do that at high speed?
Oh no,
You would wreck.
you'd pile it up. It'd be a yard sale. For sure.
Yeah, without power steering, like you said, once it breaks over, it's like you can't stop it. I thought I was going to hit the helicopter.
I was worried.
2 hours later.
Is that wheel spinning over there?
Both of them are. You're not in 4x4. Yeah, these front wheels aren't spinning at all.
Wonder what happened to them.
Yeah, rears are going great, but fronts.
All right, folks, so as you can see, it's a pretty good idea that we test these vehicles before we commit them to the parade lineup. In the event that we have a problem, and which we came across, our first gear would not stay engaged. We also discovered that the four-wheel drive would not stay engaged, and we also have some fluid leaks that we still need to address. So I know some of you would really like to see us fix this on video, but unfortunately, it's just going to have to wait because we have other vehicles in our parade lineup that are going to have a little bit more of a dramatic impact on the parade, such as our Chieftain. But rest assured, everyone, we're going to get this little guy up and running at some point in the near future. But I want to thank you all for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one. I wonder what caused that.
I don't know. Abuse?
I knew we shouldn't have let the cameraman drive it.